Good evening. I'd like to open tonight's meeting of the Queensbury Zoning Board of Appeals, Wednesday, June 24th, 2020. If you haven't been here before, the procedure is rather simple. There should be an agenda on the side table in the back. I'd like to point out that there's exits on the north side here where most of you came in, on the south side in the far corner, and in back of me on either side. Our procedure will be that we'll call each application up to the table. We'll read the application into the record. We'll question the applicant. If a public hearing has been advertised, then we'll open the public hearing, seek input from the public. We'll close the public hearing, poll the board to see what the feelings are, and then we'll proceed appropriately. So our first applicant is area variance 8-2020, Tina Fogliata, 178 Monterey Road.
The applicant proposes a lot line adjustment of an existing parcel of 0.69 acres, reduced to 0.58 acres. The current lot has gravel surface over a portion otherwise vacant. The relief requested is for lot size, and that's per section 179-3-040, establishment of districts, moderate density residential, MDR. The applicant is proposing to reduce a 0.69 acre parcel, 0.58 acres, where a parcel is required to have 2 acres. In considering this area variance, there are certain criteria according to Chapter 267 of Town Law. In making the determination, the board shall consider: 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties be created by the granting of this area variance. Staff in its note says the project may be considered to have little to no impact on the neighboring properties. At this time, both properties are vacant with gravel areas for previous buildings on the site. 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. The feasible alternatives may be limited due to the lot, as the lots do not meet the required lot size currently. 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Relief may be considered substantial relevant to the code. The relief is 1.42 acres. 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The project, as proposed, may be considered to have minimal to no impact on the environmental conditions of the site or area. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. The project, as proposed, may be considered self-created. Staff comments: the applicant proposes a lot line adjustment to assist an adjoining parcel 296.9-1-117 for additional land and a pre-existing garage on the adjoining parcel on the opposite side, 296.9-1-19. The survey shows the lot line arrangement for the 3 lots. The parcel of 296.9-1-17 has an existing accessory structure where the door width has been reduced to less than 6 feet. The intent is to remove the accessory structure at a later time.
So I'm going to ask that just a single agent come up for each application. That agent, when they're finished, I'm going to ask them to take a wipe that's supplied up there, clean up the microphone in their area, throw the wipe in the waste basket next to it, and then you're done. So is there an agent here for this application?
Yes. My name is John Shannon, attorney from Saratoga Springs. My first question was, since there are actually 2 parcels involved, did you want to have everything done at once, or just want to do them
Well,
separately?
normally we'll do, each one separately. It just keeps it cleaner for us.
Okay, I just didn't know if it mattered to you, okay. Basically, all three of these parcels are under 2 acres as it is now. Uh, The applicant is looking to transfer portions of this one lot, one at a time, to Mr. Russell Thomas, who owns the third lot that is portrayed on the map up there. In essence, Mr. Russell Thomas is looking to acquire that parcel. There's an existing garage there which he would like to use for storage with respect to that parcel. All of these parcels are fairly similar right now. All of their uses are fairly similar right now, and I don't think there's anything really to be lost by granting the application. If anybody has any questions, be happy to answer.
So do we have questions of the applicant? So Laura, you said you had maybe some,
No, I think he's addressed some of the issues that I thought might come up, and so I think it's fine unless if the board members don't have questions, then.
so I guess I just have one question. Doesn't a garage have to have a house to be on a lot?
Yep, so so when this lot line adjustment occurs, that garage will be associated with the wood frame house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that.
Yep,
isn't-
it actually makes
isn't
it
a problem.
compliant.
Okay. So, no questions of the applicant? So, at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing for this application and see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak. And I'd like to invite anybody that's watching on TV, if they want to input, call us at 518-761-8225 to provide us with your input. While we're waiting, Roy, do we have any written information?
Yeah, there is one. I have seen no evidence on these lands that would indicate the survey has been done. Last fall, Ms. Foglietta and her agent posted private property signs along Twickwood Lane, land owned by other neighbors, which many years ago was deeded forever green space. I ask that as part of your condition of approval of the lot line adjustment that a surveyor place flagging along the east and north lines of Ms. Foglietta's property to deter disturbance of vegetation and space which currently buffers homes in Twickwood. I have no doubt that the 2 new homes on Monterey Road will be an improvement. I just ask that as a neighbor, our green space be respected and protected. And that's Linda McNulty, and she lives at 14 Twickwood Lane.
Has our 2 minutes expired? So would you like to respond to the question of the neighbor there?
Actually, the question seems very basic, and I don't have any problem. I don't think the applicant would have any problem with making those adjustments that are suggested. I'd like to see something, I'd like to see a copy of that just so I could bring it back. So, but doesn't have to be done right now. It's not a problem.
Can we email that to,
Yeah, we can scan it and email it.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fine. I don't think there's a problem there at all.
Wouldn't the survey show that? That there was, these are up to date.
it seems to me that they,
Wouldn't it show that there's supposed to be some green space that's
So I don't,
granted to,
yeah.
But they're talking about
What
green
area?
space that it's on an adjacent parcel, not
Right,
on this parcel,
Yeah.
these parcels.
right?
So the survey would only cover the parcels we're speaking of.
and that would probably be more applicable to when a structure was put up. So
That's
it's
true.
really not
That's true.
part of our business right now. I wouldn't think anyway. But
So I mean, you're saying, okay, so this one parcel's 0.75 acres, the other one's 0.5, we're gonna change them to, but, so that green space is not gonna be part of any of these two parcels. That's a total separate.
It sounds to me like it is.
It sounds to me like the green space is on some other parcel, which
Okay.
is east maybe of the parcels you're talking about.
Closer to that, Carl, agree there, or?
Correct. Can I just tell you, so I'm looking at the aerial, and it shows that parcel owned by Carl, is that entire site is a green area.
Gotcha.
And so
Okay.
if Foglietti's put a sign on the Twickwood side, that wasn't their property. It would have to be a whole separate property. So I don't quite know what occurred, but the Foglietti's are not on Twickwood.
Right.
Right, they're on,
That border
just on the
is
two
not on.
Monterey parcels.
So is there anybody else that would like to provide input? So at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with John.
This is kind of definitely a little bit of a weird lot line adjustment. Usually, I mean, that's, I'm not really big on decreasing the size of the property, but it does make sense somewhat. And the other properties in that whole area are generally that size, so I guess I'd be on board with it.
So Ron?
Yeah, I have no issue with this. I would be in favor of it.
Michelle?
I agree with Mr. Henkel. I would approve this.
Jim?
They're minor adjustments up or down, and I don't see that there's any negative effects.
Catherine?
Well, I too don't like seeing the reduction in size of already non-compliant lots, in addition to the weird shape that we're creating. I would probably go along with the rest of the board, but I'd hope that maybe before something is built, the owner might consider merging the other two lots to make it more compliant.
I haven't discussed that.
Hoping she might.
I'm
I
just
know
sorry.
you would. I mean, it's not part of the board, but
Okay,
hoping. she
I understand.
might do that.
Roy?
Yeah, I have no problem with the adjustment. I'd be in favor of it.
And nor do I. It kind of makes sense to me, and I don't see where it does any harm one way or another. So at this particular time, Ron, I'm going to ask for a motion here.
Really, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to recommend that we approve area variance AV 8-2020. As per the document prepared by staff, we find that there is not an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood nor a detriment to nearby properties as this is just a minor adjustment. Feasible alternatives are there really aren't very many, and whatever alternatives were considered by the board, and it minimizes the request. The requested variance is not substantial, as it is just a minor lot line adjustment. There is not an adverse impact on the physical environmental conditions of the neighborhood or the district, although we could suggest that it is self-created. In addition, the board finds the benefit to the applicant from granting the requested variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to the health, safety, welfare, and of the neighborhood and community. The board also finds that the variance request under consideration is the minimal necessary. Therefore, I want to recommend that we approve area variance AV 8-2020.
Do I have a motion? Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Hayward,
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin,
Yes.
Mr. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Yuriko,
Yes.
Mr. Henkel.
Yes.
Mr. Pugh,
Yes.
Mr. McCabe.
Yes. Congratulations. So you may as well just stay there. I'll save you some cleaning. So our next application is AV 9-2020, same applicant, 176 Monterey Road.
The applicant proposes a lot line adjustment of an existing parcel, .88 acres, reduced to .75 acres, The existing garage will be part of the lot line adjustment to be located on an adjoining parcel, 296.9-1-1717. Parcel is .92 acres and will be increased to 1.16 acres. Relief is requested for a lot size. The applicant, that's per section 179-3-040, establishment of districts, moderate density residential. The applicant is proposing to reduce 0.88 acre parcels to 0.75 acres where a parcel is required to have 2 acres. And looking at the criteria that we need to consider, the project may be considered to have little to no impact on neighboring properties. At this time, both properties are vacant with gravel areas for previous buildings on the site. The feasible alternatives may be limited as the lots do not meet the required lot size currently. The relief may be considered substantial relevant to the code. Relief is 1.42 acres, and the project as proposed may be considered to have minimal to no impact on the environmental conditions of the site or area, and the project as proposed may be considered self-created. Staff comments. The applicant proposes a lot line adjustment to assist an adjoining parcel 296.9-1-17 for additional land and a pre-existing garage. The survey shows a lot line arrangement for the 3 lots. The parcel of 296.9-1-17 has an existing accessory structure where the door width has been reduced to less than 6 feet. The intent is to remove the accessory structure at a later time.
So just for the record, present yourself again.
Yes, my name is John Shea. I'm an attorney in Saratoga Springs, representing the applicant. These two applications obviously go hand in hand. There are 2 small, the lot line adjustment would affect 2 parcels at the rear of both of the Monte Road parcels. There isn't much additional to say that we already haven't talked about in the previous application, so I'll just yield my time.
Do we have any questions of the applicant? So at this particular time, I'd like to open the public hearing and see if there's anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this particular application, and invite anybody who's watching on TV and wants to comment to give us a call at 518-761-8225. And Roy, so we have that same letter. I suppose we should read it in again for this particular application.
I have seen no evidence on these lands that would indicate a survey has been done. Last fall, Ms. Foglietta or her agent posted private property signs along Twickwood Lane, land owned by other neighbors, which many years ago was deeded forever green space. I asked as part of your condition of approval of the lot line adjustment that a survey place flagging along the east and north lot lines of Ms. Foglietta's property to deter disturbance of vegetation and space which currently buffers homes in Twickwood. I have no doubt that the 2 new homes on Monterey Road will be an improvement. I just ask that as a neighbor, our green space be respected and protected. And it's Linda McNulty at 14 Twickwood Lane.
So we just have to wait for 2 minutes to expire for
That's no
anybody
problem.
to give us a call in. So you can do a little dance if
Our
you
position
want,
is
or-
the same on the letter that it was the first time.
The survey is a 2000 survey. And when was that land, like, granted to the Twickwood area? We don't know. So,
I have no
it's not an updated survey, so we wouldn't be able to judge that. This is, like I said, this is a 2000 survey.
Oh, I'm sure that
Is that
grant
granted
was
way
years
back?
and
That's
years
what I'm
ago,
saying.
yeah.
I don't-
Too bad she doesn't state that in her letter.
Sorry, that's not a 2000 survey, that's a 2020 survey.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't include the land she's talking about.
Oh, it says
It's-
November 24th, 2000 on mine.
So in the corner, on the right-hand corner of that, it says 2/10/2020. workshop and storage building information on that.
It was updated.
Okay.
Last
That was the last time
Okay.
it was updated.
We're gonna be here in March, I think, but something happened.
We were going to be here in March also.
That's what I'm saying. We're all gonna be here in March.
At this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Michelle.
I'm in favor of the project. For our discussion in the previous meeting, and we're creating two even more undersized lots, but those lots are really very similar to area lots, so I'm in favor.
Jim?
Yeah, these are pre-existing non-conforming lots to begin with, and all we're doing is slightly altering the lot lines on the ones that are present there. And I think the big issue here is if we can get development done on this property. It's long been neglected in the area, and I think it would be an improvement if we can push that forward.
Kathy?
I think it's very similar to the previous one, so I move to approve.
Ron?
I have no issue with this, I'm in favor.
John?
I also agree with my board members. I'll favor for it.
Roy?
I'm in favor of it as well.
So I guess I got to go along too, or they'll hang me or something. So at this particular time, I'm going to ask Michelle to present a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve area variance AV 9-2020 for Tina Foglietta at 176 Monterey Road, tax map number 296.9-1-19, on today's meeting, June 24th, 2020. Let's see, per the draft, and per the discussion tonight, there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood nor detriment to nearby properties. The reduction in the size of this property will make it really congruent with other properties in the area. Feasible alternatives have been considered by the board and are reasonable and have been included to minimize the request. The requested variance is not substantial because it really is in line excuse me, with the other properties in the area. Excuse me. So there's not an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood, and the alleged difficulty is self-created. In addition, the board finds that the benefits to the applicant from granting the requested variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community. The board also finds that the variance request under consideration is the minimum necessary.
Do I have a
Based
motion?
on- I'm sorry, based on the above findings, I make a motion to approve this area variance.
I have a motion, can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Call the vote, please.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhl?
Yes,
Mr. Yuriko?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes. So just wipe the microphone down, the podium there. Thank you for your efforts.
there you go.
Do you want any of these surveys?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
They're all yours.
So our next application is AV 12-2020, Laura McNeese, 8 Chestnut Lane.
The applicant proposes a new single-family home currently under construction. The initial site work has started. A new home is the 1,650 square feet floor area and 1,156 square foot footprint. The project includes site work, including grading. The relief requested is for height, and that's for section 179-3-040. Dimensional requirements, waterfront residential zone, WR. The project is to construct a new home at 31.125, where a 28-foot height is the maximum allowed. Making a determination, the board shall consider 5 criteria: Staff says minor to no impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. Feasible alternatives may be limited due to the grading necessary on the site to install a gravity under drain beneath the basement. Relief requested may be considered moderate relevant to the code. Relief is for 3 feet in excess. The project may be considered to have minimal impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the area, and the difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comment. The applicant is in the process of preparing a parcel for the construction of a single-family home on a .17 acre parcel. The applicant has indicated the property is lower than the road elevation. The plans show the elevation and height of the new home.
State your name for the record, please.
Tom Center with Hutchins Engineering. As you can see from the plan, we're requesting a 3.5 foot of relief for this residence. It will allow the first floor to be closer to the same level as the road in front of it. In the middle of the lot does drop away, the existing grade drops away. The location where we had to measure for the height variance is in the rear, which is the lowest portion of the lot. We're not going to be blocking any views with the structure. We're not going to be above the tree line in the neighborhood. It's going to be a fairly small house, slight pitch on the roof, and it's a crawl space, not a full basement, and it's only for utilities in the basement, so it's not usable floor area in the basement. It's just a crawl space for utilities. That'll allow the under drain and also to grade around the house better along the lot and at the road area.
So do we have questions of the applicant? So I guess.
Could I ask a
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm curious about the 2 wells.
The 2 wells? Yes, the one well is for that house and the other well is for the house on the other side that's under construction right now. There's a cross easements for the wells and for the septic systems for the 2 houses.
Really?
Yes.
If you couldn't get the height variance, would you still build the house?
Possibly we'd have to rethink how we do it. Right now, the way the utilities are designed, we need that crawl space underneath the floor area. And also, having the first floor lower, almost at below road elevation that's out in front would be a little more difficult to grade as we got into it, with the soils and everything.
What amazes me is how we've gotten along with these small lots on that road. Crazy. But anyway,
Well,
thank you.
So I guess, why is there so much construction and now you're coming to us?
as we got into the soils, we constructed the other house, getting into the groundwater drainage around the lot. The owner requested it. First, we were looking at possibly slab on grade, with the other house having that basement area and the utilities and everything. We have already got a very small house that fits into the floor area. It just would be a much better design to have. Normally when we design a house, we have it, a foot, 2 feet above the road,
Right.
and then grade away. And then looking at this and looking at the height, we thought we could grade around it, but it's becoming, more of an issue drainage-wise as we, work on the other house and started to grade this lot.
Anybody else have questions of the applicant?
The only problem I have is I think, because there are a lot of small houses in that area, and, there has been a lot of construction in that area, I'm just afraid that if we grant you the 3 feet in excess, that it's gonna become a problem for other homes that don't have that.
This lot has unique features that the lot actually sits lower than the grade. This isn't a process of trying to get more area above us for living space, right? This is trying to get it up for grading and drainage purposes, underneath the residence and also around the house.
You haven't finished construction yet, so you can adjust right now.
It would be very difficult utility-wise, plumbing, everything, being that the bathroom and everything are on the first floor because the height of the roof area is sloped so low.
Can you bring it down somewhat?
I could bring it down, a half a foot. That puts me at, pretty much at road grade, but at the middle of the lot, and then you're into grade, you know, as you go up the lot. What we're trying to do is get, you know, we're just 6 inches above the road, even at the high point at the corner, so that we can grade around it.
Anybody else? So at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing and seek input from the public. If you're watching on TV, you can call in with your input at 518-761-8225. And while we're waiting, we'll see if we have any written
No, I didn't see
input.
any comment.
Is anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this particular application? So we just have to wait out the 2 minutes here. You can do a dance if you want.
How long ago were these small lots made?
That's the original subdivision for that Shore Colony subdivision. So that's in the 70s, I believe.
Back in the 70s, they had height requirements and all that, right? Or was that?
I don't know if the
Later on.
70s had height
Yeah,
requirements.
I believe that was later on, and I'm also thinking the height requirement is more of a view issue when you become lakeside. We have no view shed here, we have no lake, you know, that's so that, you know, one person on the roadside, his view couldn't be blocked by, you know, 40-foot tall house on the lakeside. And that's kind of why we went at this, because we have no shoreline here. We're not affecting a view of the lake, a view shed. We're not going to be any higher than the trees that are already around us. We're not affecting anyone's view.
So at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to pull the board, and I'm going to start with Jim.
Yeah, I think the board has been pretty adamant about shoreline restrictions and the height of buildings on shorelines, but in this instance here, because it's inland in the peninsula, Shore Colony, we've had issues here previously in other board meetings, not in recent history. But I think in this instance here, you know, we're dealing with a substandard lot that dips below grade with that slope going backwards. The low point's actually gonna be in the back of the home as depicted in the plans. So I think in this instance here, I think we can kind of look the other way. I agree with Roy. This does not set a precedent if we grant this variance because we're only granting it for this one house. And I think it's a unique situation. You have to look at each lot in regards to what it's doing in the waterfront residential. And this one, I don't see any negative impacts whatsoever. So I would be in favor of it.
Michelle?
So, I'm struggling with this whole topic of raising the height. We have denied similar requests for inland properties. Circumstances were different. You know, this is currently under construction, so changes potentially could be made, I'm sure with great difficulty and great expense. But I'd like to, I'm going to say I'm not in favor at this time. I think we should stay with the 28 feet. I think that would be more in keeping with the neighborhood.
Ron?
Well, you know, this lot is a very strange lot, and it appears to me that it wouldn't set a precedent, so I would be in favor of it as proposed.
John?
I kind of agree with Michelle and Ron and Jim, Paul, even though they're different. When I viewed the property, there's no doubt the other side of the street, the houses are quite a bit higher, so it really doesn't, you know, cause any problems with the houses across the street. And after listening to Mr. Center, It does make sense, what he's trying to do there. So I would definitely, I don't like to see this height, but I would definitely be on board with this situation in this particular case, so I'd be agreeing with it.
Roy?
Yeah, I think for most of the tests here, I would be in favor of it, but the height variance really bothers me. I just think we should not be granting relief of 3 feet in excess, especially during the construction phase where we have an opportunity to bring it down. So I would not be in favor of it.
Catherine?
I agree that 3 feet is quite a bit, but I think that area variances in particular are based on the uniqueness of the lot and individual preference. So I'm hoping we're not setting the precedent. People want higher houses for a lot of reasons to accommodate the lot. And they did such a good job of meeting all the other setbacks. It's a modest home, and they're doing their best to fit it on there. So I think I would be in favor.
And I too am in favor. I think it would be doing a disservice to the homeowner to force him to be down low. Although, you know, I am generally pretty stringent when it comes to granting height variances, but I feel that this is a legitimate exception, and so I will support the project. So at this time, I'm going to ask Jim for a motion.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to approve area variance. Public hearing is advertised, and upon review, the board finds there's no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. The board recognizes that this is a major request because of 3 feet over the normal variance of 28 feet that we would allow. But at the same time, we recognize the need to the lot being sunken into the ground as opposed to the grade of the road nearby. Feasible alternatives have been considered by the board. I guess you could do a knee wall on the second floor story and lower the building down slightly by that, but the building is under construction. Any scale modifications to the plans and progress that's been made so far. As far as the requested variance being substantial, we would deem it to be substantial because it's 3 feet over the normally required allowance. As far as adverse impacts on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood, this is a unique situation that we recognize with a sunken lot, and it in no means allows other houses to be built over height in the neighborhood without other review occurring first. As far as the alleged difficulty being self-created, it is self-created, but the house as proposed is a modest home, and we feel that this home fits in with the neighborhood and will not be noticed as an overheight building. In addition, the board finds the benefit to the applicant from granting the requested variance outweighs any detriment to the neighborhood, even though the building will be over height. It's noted that it's inland on the peninsula and will not be seen from the waterfront. And we also find that this variance under consideration is the minimum necessary. So I move for its approval.
So we have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Call the vote, please.
Mr. Kuhl?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
No.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Yuriko? Mr. McCabe?
Yes. Congratulations. So do you want any of your... Okay, so good job wiping down there. Thank you very much. So our next application is AV 17-2020, Elizabeth Miller, 1099 Ridge Road.
The applicant proposes to update an existing 521 square foot produce stand that includes a 300 square foot sales area and 93 square foot of attached covered building section. The project is to remove an existing covered porch and construct a new 128 square foot porch. The relief required is for relief to setbacks in the MDR zone and travel corridor overlay. The section is for section 179-3-040, dimensional requirements, and 179-4-080, setback for porches, and 179-4-030, travel corridor. The applicant proposes to remove an existing covered porch area to replace it with a 128 square foot porch. The project includes an update to the roof, also to allow for overhead doors to be installed. The setback is proposed to be 27.3 feet, where a 75-foot setback is required. Minor impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. Feasible alternatives may be limited due to the placement of the existing building on the parcel. The relief requested may be considered substantial relevant to the code. The relief requested is 47.7 feet to the front property line. The project may be considered to have minimal impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the area, and the difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments. The applicant proposes to upgrade an existing produce stand with a new roof, with new overhead doors, and a new 128 square foot porch. The site is an approved produce stand and has associated buildings with a garden facility. The plan shows the existing conditions, and an elevation plan shows the new porch area.
State your name for the record, please.
I'm Matt Safone, the builder. Started off as a little repair job, and the roof is in rough shape, so we're actually not building anything outside of what's there. We're just raising it up and making it safer. We had to come out front a little bit because it's on a slab, and the slab is sitting on the ground. It's lifting up and down in the winter, so we're just going to put the post on the drawing on the front side of them, dig them down in the ground 4 feet. We're raising it up a minimal amount so you can walk under it. And the section on the south side, it's already existing also. We're just going to raise it up so you can walk in there.
So do we have questions of the applicant? Seems pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You talk about garage doors. What are you gonna do?
Nothing. We took the garage door out.
You did?
It was broken. We put a man door in.
Okay,
That was the garage door thing. It wasn't.
got it.
Other questions? So there is a public hearing advertised, and so at this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing and seek input from anybody in the audience. And if you're watching on TV, you can call us at 518-761-8225 if you have input. And Roy, do we have anything written?
No, there is no written comment.
So we'll just have to wait a couple minutes and see if anybody's got interest that's not present. Anybody present? Gonna,
Do you know when that was originally built?
I don't.
oh boy, that's been there.
I'm gonna say it, yeah. So
I was gonna say it.
My whole life, yeah. I don't go back quite that far.
Should have some music, you know?
You're about the 10th person. If you came to a meeting once in a while, you'd know that that's brought up.
I was trying to get Michelle to do a dance. Won't go for it.
I'll try to do better, Mr. Chairman.
You dressed up today, too.
Hey. I've been building a deck all day.
So at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Roy.
Yeah, I don't see any problems with this application. I think it's pretty much repairing what we'll be able to be in favor of it.
John?
Yeah, it's not a new project, it's just updating and maintenance to make it's a little safer for people. And like they were saying, it's from the 1920s, it's kind of tradition to the Sunnyside and Queensbury area, so I don't see any objection to it, so I would be for it.
Ron?
I'd be in favor of the way it's presented.
Michelle?
I'm also in favor, I propose.
Jim?
Yeah, anybody who drives by it knows what it is. It's been there forever, so why would we change it at this point in time and worry about it? So,
Kathy?
Yes, very,
And I think it's a good project, and so I support it also. So Kathy, I'm going to ask for a motion.
okay. I move that we approve area variance 17/2020, applicant name Elizabeth Miller. There is no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood nor depth of the nearby properties. In particular, it actually is part of the character of the neighborhood that we're hoping to secure in this variance. Feasible alternatives will be limited, the repairs are necessary. So basically, alternatives are really not possible in this situation. The requested variance is not substantial. It appears to be less than 1 foot, or approximately, is it exactly 1 foot? Thank you. There is no adverse impact to physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district. The election difficulty can be said to be self-created. In addition, the board finds that the benefits to the applicant from the granting of the request, this variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood community. The board finds that the variance request under consideration is minimal necessary, is minimally necessary. No conditions have been proposed. So I hereby move to approve the area variance.
So I have a motion. Could I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Call the vote, please.
Mr. Yuriko?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
yes,
Mr. Kuhl?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes. So you're all set? Do you want any of your paperwork here?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So our next application is AV 18, 2020, Jacob Yellen, 14 Blackberry Lane.
The applicant proposes placement of a pool in the backyard of the parcel that is considered to have 2 fronts, Blackberry Circle and Blind Rock Road. Relief is requested for placement of a pool in the front yard. That's set for section 179-5-020 pools. The applicant proposes installing a pool to the rear of his home, but is considered a front yard. Pools are to be located in the rear yard of the parcel. The lot is considered to have 2 fronts. Minor impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. Feasible alternatives may be limited due to the location of the home on parcels with 2 fronts. The subdivision does not permit access to the parcel from Blind Rock Road, where the lot is accessed from Blackberry Lane and is not to change. The relief requested may be considered moderate relevant to the code. Relief requested for a pool in the front yard where the applicant considers the use of the area to be the rear yard. The project may be considered to have minimal impact to the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, and the difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments, the applicant proposes to place a pool in the front yard of an existing lot with a single-family home. The information submitted shows the lot configuration with the proposed pool. The project site is part of a subdivision, Blackberry Circle subdivision, sub 20-2003.
Thank you. I'm Mike O'Connor from the law firm of Little, O'Connor and Borey. I represent the applicant. The applicant is here with me tonight. I had a number of discussions with Craig Brown as to whether or not we actually needed a variance. And I won't go into those because I think we get sidetracked. But basically, he concluded that we do need an area variance. He said it was a technicality, and that's why we are here. This is a lot that has frontage on both Blackberry Lane and Blind Rock Road. However, what I've submitted, I think, to you shows that along Blind Rock Road, which is really the backyard of this property, there is a 60-foot wide no-cut buffer zone. So you couldn't establish a right-of-way or you couldn't establish a driveway to Blind Rock Road through that no-cut zone. So it doesn't really have access to Blind Rock Road. Part of my discussions, and I again don't want to get sidetracked, when we talk about driveways and width is under our ordinance says has to be usable. Well, I would think that you would, in fairness, apply the same standard to frontage. And this is not frontage on the highway because it's not usable. You can't put a driveway through that 60 foot. Also, if you drive up Blind Rock Road, you will see that the lot elevation rises sharply away from the road. So what we're talking about as far as impact is very little because even the pool that's up in the yard is not going to be visible. I also, or my client also, obtained letters from the two adjoining neighbors to this particular lot, both of whom said that they have no objection to it. They didn't think it would have any impact upon them. Further, I have submitted a drawing which demonstrates whether or not there's any feasible alternative. The prior owner installed thermal heat, and you can see where it goes into the yard and then also where the septic system is. They both would interfere with trying to put the pool on the side yard, particularly on the side yard that's toward Blackberry Lane. Blackberry Lane actually comes up and then goes at a right angle over to this particular property. So what we're proposing, and the staff has agreed, has very minimum impacts on anything. It is a technicality. We've got the consent of the two neighbors. We don't have a feasible alternative. It is self-created, but it's not, it might be substantial. It's substantial in the sense that no pool is allowed in a front yard, and he is determined that this could be considered a front yard because it has some frontage on the road, even though it's not usable frontage for access. But if you look at the fact of the impacts, they're so minimum, it's not substantial. I think that's the way we've always argued about whether or not something is substantial. Who's it going to impact, and what is it going to be? Is it going to be negative or not? This is not going to affect either the two side neighbors or anybody on Blind Rock Road. So that's our presentation. If you have questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
Do we have questions of the applicant? I think this is pretty straightforward, and we've faced this situation in several other occasions. At this particular time, I'm going to open the public hearing and seek input from anybody in the audience. And if anybody's watching on the outside, invite them to call us at 518-761-8225 with your input. And so, shall we read the letters? We read the letters into the record?
You can read them.
Really?
I am writing to advise the town of Queensbury of my approval for the proposed addition of a pool at my neighbor Jacob Yellen's home at 14 Blackberry Lane. I feel that the proposed addition of the pool will not have any negative impact on the neighborhood, which is known for its privacy and tranquility. As such, I and the entire Shell family of 10 Blackberry Lane fully endorsed proposed addition. And that's Brian Shell, 10 Blackberry Lane. And then I, Ryan Wild, residing and owning the land at 18 Blackberry Lane, directly next door to Jake Yellen at 14 Blackberry Lane, have no reservation or complaint whatsoever about Mr. Yellen putting his in-ground pool in his backyard that is being considered a front yard to Blind Rock Road. We have sufficient no-cut zones and buffering between the homes and the road. This pool will pose no issue. And again, that's Ryan Wild, 18 Blackberry Lane.
Thank you. I have the original of those letters, Laura, to give to you.
Okay.
So at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to poll the board, and I'm going to start with Kathy.
I believe we've had a couple of double front yard pool situations before in the addition, so it's very well buffered and wooded, so I would have no objection.
Roy?
Yeah, I think even if it did have this extenuating circumstances, it would still be, I would still be in favor of it because it's 2 front yards. It's generally treated favorably by the board. But even more so now because Lime Rock is not accessible. So I agree with Mr. O'Connor, and I would be in favor of it.
John?
Yeah, I also agree with Mr. O'Connor's explanation of the project, and I'd be on board with it.
Ron?
Do I have to mention Mr. O'Connor's name?
You don't have to mention his name, just say yes.
This again is one of those projects that because the property is on 2 roads, they have to present and spend the money. I'd be in favor of presenting, of course.
Michelle?
I'm also in favor, based on the technicality, so it fits in the character of the neighborhood.
Jim?
The board has always accommodated these requests, and as long as there's no opposition, the neighbors are all in favor of it. I don't think anybody doubts that Blackbird Circle is the front of this property.
And that's the way I view it also, so I favor the project. So at this particular time, I'm going to ask Ron for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to recommend that we approve the area variance AV 18-2020, Jacob Yellen, 14 Blackberry Lane. As per the document prepared by staff, we find there is not an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, nor detriment to nearby properties, as the pool is really in the rear of the house. The feasible alternatives, if any, there really aren't, were considered, and there really aren't any possible. The requested area variance is not substantial due to the fact that the property is being fronted on 2 roads. There is not an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. I don't even think that the alleged difficulty is self-created because of the 2 roads. In addition, the board finds that the benefit to the applicant for granting the requested variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood and community. We also find, the board finds that the variance requested under consideration is the minimum necessary. Therefore, I recommend we approve area variance AV 18-2020.
So I have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. Yuriko?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhl?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you want any of this?
You'll need 4. You'll need 4 of them.
Mr. O'Connor.
You're out of wipes.
Oh,
I got a container of white for him.
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
and he wiped his station down, and we only have one more applicant. You don't need it.
Everybody else.
Yes. So our next application is AV 19-2020, Robert Kendall Jr., 2469 Ridge Road.
The applicant proposes to complete a 225 square foot open deck addition to an existing 93 square foot deck on the north side of the home. The existing home is 1,506 square feet footprint with a 500 square foot covered porch in the front of the home. The relief requested is for setbacks and land conservation 42 acres, LC 42A, for section 179-3-040 dimensional requirements and section 179-4-080 decks. The applicant proposes to complete a 225 square foot deck that does not meet the property setback. West side setback is to be 69.2 feet, north side is to be 26.5 feet, east side is to be 44.1 foot, where 100-foot setback is required from all property lines. Minor impacts to the neighborhood may be anticipated. Feasible alternatives may be limited due to the existing house location, the configuration of the lot, and the size of the lot of 0.52 acres in a 42-acre zone. Relief requested may be considered moderate relevant to the code. Relief is requested, west side setback to be 30.8 feet, north side is to be 73.5 feet, east side is to be 55.9 feet. The project may be considered to have minimal impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the area, and the difficulty may be considered self-created. Staff comments, the applicant has provided plans that show the location of the deck addition. The applicant has indicated the addition is to an existing deck area to allow for additional space.
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Robert Kendall, Robert C. Kendall Jr., to be exact.
I left out the C when I... So do you have anything to add?
I don't really think I can add any more than what's on there. It's a tiny little 10 by 10 deck in the back. You cannot actually see it because it's so wild around my house. And in the wintertime, you might get a glimpse of it from Route 9, from Ridge Road. But other than that, it's in the confines of the existing house, and it just basically gives me...
When was that house originally built?
I believe the original survey was 60s possibly. I should know that, but I forgot now. It's about the third or fourth generation house. It's been, I think it was originally just a one season, place, and then somebody else did something else, and then somebody else did something else.
So do we have questions of the applicant?
I'm kind of curious, it's very wooded all around, but this Margaret Bowman, there's no structure there. I mean, do you know anything what might go in there in the future? I mean, I know you don't have to know that, but that would be the only person that, and she'd have to build within the law of the land anyway, but it would possibly have.
Yeah, the Bolins, it's a cookie cutter. It's a very interesting, survey setup. But I'm actually in communication with actually Mr. Bolin passed, but Tom is one of the kids, and Bob is one of the kids, and I've been talking with Tom a lot, but I'm not sure how to answer the question because Ward Lane is kind of right behind me, as you can see, and there's really not a whole lot you can do in any of that because...
Well, as it stands right now, it's very wooded, and so you can't see it.
Right, I mean,
future development might have.
I like it that way, by the way.
I mean, they know that it was there and they have to do it.
Other questions? So at this particular time, a public hearing has been advertised, and so I'm going to open the public hearing and seek input from anybody in the audience. And if you're watching on TV, I'll invite you to call in at area code 518-761-8225 to make comment. Roy, do we have any written comment?
Yeah, there is one. Thank you for the opportunity to make a statement about our town and our processes. Due to another commitment, I cannot attend the zoning meeting. I am writing in support of Robert Kendall's application for a deck addition at 2469 Ridge Road. Mr. Kendall is a good neighbor that takes care of his property. I have never had any issues with him or his property. Therefore, I believe he is responsible and reasonable homeowner. His property has an odd shape and sits on a steep hill. The current small deck is the only logical position to offer privacy. Another spot is not reasonable. I believe that a 225 square foot deck is also reasonable given our neighborhood. Based on what I know of him, I am sure that Mr. Kendall will make all necessary steps to construct a safe, secure, aesthetic, and appropriate deck. And that is Keniston Suite, 8 Hannaford Road.
Is this when I dance?
What's that?
Is this when I dance?
Yes, that's right, that's right. You got, I don't really like that.
We'll definitely get it approved if you do.
Jig.
Now, on this survey, it says it's 0.52 acres, and of course, we have 1.41 acres.
So I would go, the survey is more accurate than our description, our GIS description of it.
Okay, so I know in this sheet, he's given us, says 0.52, and of course, our information says 1.4 acres.
And that's what I'm saying, is GIS is not the
Yeah.
most accurate, survey is the most accurate.
Okay, so at this particular time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask Michelle to make a motion.
You want to pull the board first?
Oh, excuse me, that's right.
Just in case.
I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm going to pull the board, and Ron, I'm going to start with you.
It's good the way you remember that phone number, though. You know, all kidding aside, if this was I mean, it's in a land conservancy, 42 acres. If it were in any other normal housing development on the, you know, it's got 30 feet from one side and 73 from another and 55, so I'm in favor of the way it's presented. It's a shame you have to waste the time and money to come here.
Michelle?
Thank you.
I'm in favor as well. I think it fits well in the character of the neighborhood. No environmental impact I can imagine.
Thank you.
Jim?
It's only the LC 42 designation that triggers this whole meeting. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you.
Kathy?
I think it's a reasonable request, certainly a way to enjoy the property more.
Roy?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the application. It's it passes all the tests.
John?
Yeah, it's a very small request. Any of those houses in that area, in the 42 acre land conservatory would have to ask for a request of any kind of addition, so I'd definitely be on board.
And I too support the project. I think it's a minimal request, really, and I think a lot of the problem is just caused by the home was situated before we had the zoning. I'll take care of that. So at this particular time, I'm going to ask Michelle to make a motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve area variance number 19-2020 for Robert C. Kendall Jr., 2469 Ridge Road, tax map number 240-6-1-5 on today, June 24th, 2020. Based on the evidence presented tonight, there is not going to be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood nor a detriment to nearby properties. This modest deck addition is going to fit perfectly in with the character of the neighborhood with the other houses in the area. Feasible alternatives have been considered by the board and were not deemed reasonable. And the requested variance is not substantial. Again, it's a modest sized deck, and the lines of the deck are in line with the house itself. Let's see. There is not going to be an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district. Again, this is a deck and on almost 1.5 acre parcel of land. The alleged difficulty is self-created. In addition, the board finds that the benefits to the applicant from granting the requested variance would outweigh the resulting detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community. The board also finds that the variance request under consideration is the minimum necessary. Based on these findings, I'll make a motion to approve area variance number 19-2020.
So I have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Call the vote, please.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Yuriko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamlin?
Yes.
Mr. Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhl?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayward?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes. Congratulations. So,
Thank you.
just I'll clean up for you. Mr. O'Connor has asked for a couple minutes to talk to us, and I granted his request. So I'm going to wipe down the podium, and then I'll ask Mr. O'Connor to speak.
Did you need any of this, or
We will need 4 copies. We'll need 4 of them.
I need 4 copies.
Yep.
You need 4 copies or I need 4?
You can pick them up
Okay.
and I'll show you.
you're gonna need to give it to her?
Have a nice evening.
You too,
You know, Mr. O'Connor, when you drove in the exit? Did you know that? That's why I zoomed in front of you, because, you know, I didn't know which way you were coming or going.
Neither did I. I have an interesting project I'm going to bring for you.
Okay?
I have a client who is buying the stump dump up on Sherman Avenue. It's 49 acres. It's owned by the city. It's Cerrone Builders. And what he wants to do is build
Meet you there.
a subdivision like he has over here off of Sweet Road. That's called the Village at Sweet Road. This will be called Sherman Avenue Village. We don't mix up the mill people and all that stuff. The zoning on the property right now is,
Can I just interject? You do understand that's probably not appropriate for the board to hear a potential proposal in the future. Usually it comes in as a sketch plan, typically to the planning board. And I understand, Mr. O'Connor, and
I'm not asking you to make any decision or
I know, but you,
just trying to say, here's what's going to come. I'd like to have you thinking about it, maybe go out and look at the site.
so I'm just giving you the heads up that it's probably not appropriate.
The supervisor's been very supportive of it. They want to get rid of the stump dump. The present zoning is 1 acre with water and sewer, 2 acres without it. We are going to ask for variance for lots within this subdivision to be a ½ acre. That's why I want to talk about it a little bit ahead of time. It's the same size lots that are in the village at Sweet Road. It'll be the same type of quality subdivision that he built there that he would build here. I don't anticipate any of the neighbors are going to have any objection to get rid of the stump dump. It's been there for a number of years. It's got brush, trees, leaves, and pavement. It's been collected by the city, and that's where they disposed of it for years. We've had engineering do subsurface study of it. We've done drill holes and drill test everything. There is no contamination in it. We're going to remove some of that stuff. And the area where the concentration is going to end up being a common area. It's not going to be used for houses and stuff. So that's what we're going to do. I have the alternative of going to the town board and asking them to do rezoning, or asking you for variance. I prefer to do it by variance. And the reason we want to downsize the requirement is because then we're going to come in with the PUD to the town board, and you can't increase your density if you don't have a PUD. You have to maintain the underlying then existing density. So this is something that is going to go maybe to you for area variance. I've done it before. I did it in my own subdivision over on Lake Sunnyside. We did it with a couple other, I can't really think of it. Came in and said, this is all going to be undersized lots. Can you improve the subdivision as it is? And we did that. I've got some history of doing that. And we'll go either for the variance or go for the town board for rezoning. Even if that happens, either of those happens, you have to go back to the town board and planning board for the PUD. So it's going to have a lot of approvals, a lot of attention, a lot of looking. You're going to have a lot of opportunity to look at it. But I just want you to think about it. Go up there and drive by. I think they have the old road going in there chained off.
And where is it, Mike?
Sherman Avenue.
Towards the end, almost to
Go
Westwood.
out toward Westwood Falls.
Can't miss it.
Sherman Avenue.
They dump all the leaves there.
Okay.
Down City of Glens Falls.
And in fact, they called me the other day and said they want to start dumping again. I said, no, we're under contract. Don't put any more crap in there that we got to get out.
And why don't you want to go for rezoning?
Can I just remind you that, again, you're talking.
I know.
We're just, so yeah, so I don't think it's appropriate to ask questions.
Okay. I'm
You
not
know,
asking.
I just agreed, so, you know, he could talk.
Okay.
So do we have to all resolve something
Okay.
now? when
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you for considering allowing me to speak.
No, because we've heard it all together. So at this particular time, unless there's some objection, I'm going to end tonight's meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll see you.
Jeremy, you're going to write down?
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
So, 2 meetings in July?
I think it'll end up being one.
Okay.
I can do one. I can do one.
I was rude to you.